Hello everybody and welcome back to Ant Holleufer. Today we are once again taking a look at the Myrmica Rubra colony. This is now episode 5 and let's just jump straight into the video. So taking a look at how the Formicarium looks today, quite a lot has changed since the last episode. So first of all, of course, the plant life has changed a lot, but second of all, and more important, is the bedding situation. So all of the bedding is now dirt instead of this woody bedding we had before. I was so tired of looking at it, and it's much prettier now with the small wood pieces gone. So this right here is where the nest entrance is located, and this plant has kind of died. I don't know if it's just because we're getting into winter and there isn't that much sun, or maybe something else. But the other thing is this plant where the ants initially lived in, it's completely gone now. It's just so dead. And I'm pretty sure that if I want to, I can just go over and take the whole plant up. But what's very interesting is now where the plant is dead, we can see all of these old nest holes that are all around the plant. But it's just funny seeing how this plant has just completely been demolished. The snails have also been a lot on this plant, so maybe they've just eaten a bit too much, and just in general this plant is just gone. Some of the better news is that most of the time now the ants have taken this front corner as their graveyard. This is not where all of the dead ants are, but there are quite a lot of bodies, so that's very nice. But else the colony is going very good. They are in the middle of hibernation, and therefore I haven't cleaned my glass and it's dirty to look at. Nah, I'm kidding. There hasn't happened that much since we are in hibernation, but I'm not really sure that I can say that, because when I water the ants, most of the time nothing happens. But last time I watered the ants, this happened. So I was just about to clean the whole Myrmica Rubra setup with my new tweezers from High-Tech Ants, and I just want to water it a little bit, and look what happened. Every single time I've watered this colony, nothing has happened, but for some reason some chamber or something broke. This is so crazy, man. What the damn. That is so crazy. No words. No idea what has happened. I thought they were all in hibernation. So a little update, just currently holding my light to record this. I'm now definitely sure that some chamber in the dirt cracked or something when I put some water on it, because they've taken out their larvae and really just all bunched up in this little bubble right here. So I can't see any queen. I think that's a queen right there. So we have a queen outside. That's how things have happened. So yeah, we have a queen outside the nest. Wow, I didn't even see that before I just started recording now. So I didn't quite understand why all the ants were in this corner right here, but yeah, if we can just get some focus. It's definitely because of the queen is in there. Hopefully there's only one queen in that little chamber right there. But we still have a lot of ants. So before we continue the video, I'd just like to say that if you want to see these weird, not YouTube videos, I post them on my stories on Instagram. So if you want to see some of those videos, head over to my Instagram at Ant Holleufer and give me a follow. Let's continue. So yeah, quite a lot of chaos with my last watering. I did see all 3 queens out and about. They seem to have all gone down again. But what's very nice is at the bottom layer of this Formicarium we have this coconut layer, and therefore I can very clearly see that this is now that nest entrance. And you can see that by the small coconut, the brownish coconut powder that's all over the place, because they have been down in the coconut layer to dig. And you can see they are still digging a little bit. This only happened a few days ago, so they are still constructing their new nest. But it's very nice that now I can finally see where my ants are living at. And to anyone who's wondering where it is right next to the plain side. But more on that later. So I for the longest time wanted to do a big time lapse, a full day time lapse where I just observed all the ants inside the formicarium and decided now was the time to try. I want to give an apple because inside the formicarium we have a few new living creatures. Not new, but I'll show you in a bit. But I started my time lapse and you can see we really have a lot of ants running about. I don't know if it's because I haven't cooled the nest down so they aren't really clever going into hibernation or what has happened, but looking at the situation we have a lot of ants running around. So especially this small piece right here of apple, they really were into, but of course when I started to record it, they all were gone. But we had a lot of ants walking about. Up on the main apple, the workers were also sipping the juices from the apple. And there was just so much life and action inside the formicarium. I really thought that the whole colony was just gone into hibernation before my little water problem. But now I'm pretty sure that they have just skipped hibernation. Or maybe they haven't skipped hibernation, but they've just... It's just such a large colony that this is their slowing down. And not really slowing down. What's very funny is these workers walking around the apple, they're all just kind of checking it out. But not that many ants is actually stopping and sipping. So I don't quite know why they're doing this, because they're just kind of walking around, tasting a little bit, and then keeps walking. And once again here at the nest entrance, with the apple coming out, we can really start to see how many ants there are around this plain side. So this is definitely their main nest entrance, also because this is where the queen were headed when the whole water situation hit the colony. But it's very clear that they have probably housed themselves under this plane. So back when I initially built it, the plane had a little bit of room under it where they could probably be very safe from moisturization, and this was just in general be a dry area. So I'm thinking that they have probably moved under the plane, or at least some of the colony is under the plane. But kickstarting my second part of my time-lapse, trying to see if it would work for 24 hours, it didn't. But we can just really see how much action there is around this small apple piece. So with me coming in a bit later and the time-lapse having stopped, I decided to take my camera out once again. And this time we could really see how many ants there were actually going around sipping this small piece. I don't even know how this small piece came apart from the apple, but the ants were really happy that it did, at least. And there was just a lot of sipping going on. But in my little time-lapse I didn't really show the big problem we have. So I'm gonna show it right here. We have an isopod infestation. I don't know really when this happened, but all these small isopod babies have just grown up, and when I come to look at the formicarium at night, there are just no ants, but instead there are all of these isopods. So when people have asked me on Instagram what I've been feeding them lately, I haven't really been able to say anything else than isopods, because I've tried to keep this population down by killing a few every night. But as you can see, with around 2 weeks of killing, there isn't any difference at all. They're just all running around still. It's just so crazy how many isopods there are. So I don't really know what to do with all of these isopods. For now I'm just letting them live and killing some of them whenever I feel like it. Because I'm just a little bit scared that they may attack the ants. I don't know, I'm just a bit paranoid, but in my head I could just see an isopod running around, killing an ant. Probably something that's never gonna happen, but I'm still scared as hell that it would. And once again, the ants are also living in peace with them, it seems like. When I initially brought them in, around half a year ago, they weren't that peaceful and they killed all the isopods. but I guess they have gotten all the food they required and don't see it necessary to kill these isopods, so they have just been able to grow a lot. So I decided to show you what happens if I kill some of these isopods. So I placed 3 dead isopods on the rock in the middle of the formicarium and tried to observe what would happen. Normally I just kill them and walk away, and the next day all the isopods have been taken away, and you can see only after around 1 minute we have the first worker inspecting the isopods. Tasting a little bit maybe, but they don't really find it that interesting. But this is the part that I'm a bit scared of, because another isopod just came and started feasting on this newly killed isopod. So they're just cannibals, they're feeding on each other, and I'm just scared that maybe an isopod will kill an ant someday because they are so crazy at eating each other. So yeah, I don't know. Once again, taking a little look at the nest entrance, I'm so happy that I'm finally able to record it, because I find it so much cooler that I can record where the ants come in and come out. But looking once again at the isopod situation, for some reason the ants weren't that interested. We had a few workers here and there, but I don't know if they were all full on apple, but they decided not really to feast on it. So going away from the ants and the isopods, we still have our snails. But as you can see, the snails have made a baby. So this baby snail actually came out right after my last Myrmica Rubra video. I don't know if it was a pregnant snail or what has happened, but all 3 snails, and now 4 snails, are living in peace. They are only moving around once every 2nd week. I don't know if that's normal or what it is, but they are most of the time just located in one place for 2 weeks before they move a little bit. So back to the ants. I wanted to show the new nest entrance by doing a big time lapse to show the trail that they would form from the entrance over to this protein jelly. So I kicked off another time lapse, and they weren't that interested. We had a few workers over sipping once again. Actually, we had 3 workers over sipping. But we didn't really get this trail that I had wanted. It is quite hard to want a trail in the middle of hibernation, because most of the ants are hibernating. But this was my little try to get a trail from the nest entrance. But as you can see from the top time lapse, I didn't really get what I wanted. So just speeding it up a little bit more to just end my time lapse. No trail visible. So in general, the ants are still living in peace. I haven't really had any problems at all. I still only have had 1 or 2 escapees when I initially got them. But just in general, this is how they look when they are trying to escape. Walking up the side. Entering the protection layer, coming all the way up to the newly made layer, and turns around. As far as I know, we haven't had any escapees except for 1, which I saved. So, I mean, it's going good. I can't say anything else. It's just this colony has been problemless since the beginning. And now we are starting to have these tunnels on the outside of the glass, which I have wanted for so long. But we haven't really had any ants in them yet. I have seen 1 worker that has walked through this little tunnel right here. So I don't know where it comes to and goes to. But I have seen 1 ant walk through it, and I'm just so happy, because this is what I've wanted to see for so long. And hopefully that will happen next year. So I recorded the nest a little bit again, and I saw this weird earthworm, I think. Just chilling a little bit up the surface, and I just thought you should see that. But I mean, in general, this colony is just such a nice colony. We haven't had any problems, and they're just growing. So I've thought a little bit about naming all of these plants and areas inside the nest, and to be honest, I don't really know what to do about the naming situation. In the last episode I asked what you guys wanted as a naming situation, and you wanted 4 unique names for the Formicarium. But to be honest, I don't know, I think it's a little bit too many maybe. But I am open for your name suggestions if you have anything to say. With 2 of the plants almost dead, it is a little bit easier to say over at the plant because they are all dead. So that's a little plus. But in general, I am pretty lost on what to do with the whole naming situation. So here in hibernation time, there's around 10 to 15 workers always scavenging around the Formicarium. I don't know if it's because they are not in hibernation or maybe they are in hibernation. I'm very lost about the whole hibernation situation. But there's just always around 10 to 15 workers. So you can always come and observe the colony, which I've just hoped for so long. And I think it's time to end the video. At least that's what I thought when I edited this video. Because in my last Myrmica Rubra video, I said that I would want to give these guys a grasshopper or a cricket or something, and I had completely forgotten about it. So I quickly ran down, bought myself some grasshoppers, and gave a grasshopper with its head chopped off to the ants. So last video when I said this, I wanted to make this trail, but since we're in hibernation, I don't expect this trail to come. But I mean, you can never know before you record it. So in the first 10 minutes or so, we only had 1 worker inspecting the grasshopper. This colony has always been very bad at communicating with each other. For some reason they just never talk to each other. But after a while we had 2 and 3 workers coming over to the grasshopper. So I find it very funny to see them try to work this grasshopper, try to cut its leg off or whatever this ant is doing. I don't know why it's not going in from the head, but for some reason it's trying to cut the leg off, which I don't think I would have done personally. So while the one worker was trying to cut off the leg, another worker was trying to drag the whole leg, and a third worker was like, hey, I can help you with this, but I don't want to, and just left. So it took quite a while before the colony discovered that there was a head lying around, and this head would just be very easy to just take, and finally a worker did take it and started dragging it around and dragged it outside the feeding dish. Kind of dragged it around for a little bit before settling it up here at this rock. So I'm pretty sure that right here the head is actually fallen down to some kind of pit or something, because the colony just didn't know what to do with this head after all. I thought they would drag it over to the nest and I would see their official nest entrance, but for some reason they just kept on eating it here and never really made it that much further. Another thing that was kind of weird was that there was only around 1 to 2 workers eating the head, but after half an hour we had 4 workers eating the head. So still not a very impressive number, and I'm not sure why there weren't any more workers, because there wasn't that many workers over at the grasshopper either. So I could clearly see that the colony tried to drag this grasshopper a little bit back and forward, and I thought maybe I should just take it out of the feeding dish. So I did. But it seems like after I took it out of the feeding dish, it wasn't that interested anymore. From 3 workers, it came down to there was only around 1 to 2 workers, and for some reason they just weren't that interested in any of it. You can see there's a lot of workers just walking around. Not that many over at the protein jelly, not that many over at the cricket, but for some reason all the workers had now joined on the head. So this took around 2 hours before we had all of these workers eating the head. But they still didn't drag it over to the nest entrance. For some reason they just decided to eat it here. Another thing I noticed while doing this time lapse was we actually had a lot of ants going in and out of the nest entrance. I didn't really notice this before I watched the time-lapse back, but you can clearly see on the left side all of these ants are entering and exiting nest entrance holes. And yeah guys, that has been it for this video. So really interesting observing the ants. I really thought they were in hibernation, but apparently I'm so lost on what's going on with them. I don't know if it's just because that's how many ants are out doing hibernation, or maybe they skipped hibernation. I'm pretty sure they skipped, but I don't know. So before we end the video, this outro is gonna be a little bit different because the other day after I finished editing this video, I got a new macro lens, or at times 2 macro lens, a better lens, and I tried to record a little bit with that, and it didn't go so well, and because the video was already done, I thought that I would just include it in the outro. And with that being said, the next 3 or 4 minutes will just be some of my first practicing shots, so it's gonna be unfocused and maybe not as good as it will be in a future video, but yeah, just thought you might want to see that. And with that being said, this has been the end of the video, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!